Hello, and welcome to Cold Outage Success Stories, where we focus on regular business people just like you who have found success with cold outbound on email and other channels. We go deep into their process with hot tips around personalization, messaging, targeting, so that you can take away real tips that you can implement in your cold outage starting tomorrow. Today we have Joel from Modern Outbound.
Hi
Joel,
there.
welcome.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Nice to be on.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about Modern Outbound. What do you guys do? How do you make money?
Yeah. So we're an outbound shop. I started this 3 years ago. Have always been in institutional sales, but coming from the big finance, big banks, I didn't always have the flexibility or creativity to build prospecting campaigns the way that I wanted to. So 3 years ago, decided to go off on my own, build something that startups could benefit from pretty quickly. Saw a lot of just natural demand. I think the big trend, as I'm sure you're seeing, is SDRs, BDRs is becoming a very difficult role.
Yeah.
Churn, even in the best of times, is pretty high. You spend time training them, and then the average churn rate is like 9, 10 months. So there's got to be the thought in my brain is there's got to be a better way for startups to scale outreach without hurting their domain, without hurting their reputation, blowing up their addressable market with a couple clicks of a button. And that was why I built Modern Outbound, was to help them build systems, most importantly. Like, as part of those systems, it's copywriting, it's A/B testing, it's setting up email infrastructure so that their open rates stay high. It's so that their data stays clean. It's kind of like this combination of strategies that works really well together. And I think that a lot of startups, scale ups, whatever you want to call them, just didn't have the in-house resources to make it happen. And even if
Yeah.
they did have people like bodies to actually do it, there was very little expertise on how
Mhm.
to actually execute and get it done. So that's why I
Yeah.
built Modern Outbound.
Awesome. That sounds great. So do you mostly work with like funded VC-backed startups? Is that your niche?
Mostly, yeah. VC backed, although we work with a lot of great bootstrap startups, companies that have been around for a long time and they've been kind of stagnant. We work
Hmm.
with companies that have been in the game since the 80s, 90s, and
Wow.
they're really they have solid revenue by all accounts, but they're trying to get to the next level. Their sales reps don't quite know what to do. They're sort of dialing, they don't know how to email, they don't know how to, like, they can't pull it together. So we actually work with now both ends of the spectrum, but most of our clients are SaaS software, like VC
Mhm.
backed.
Okay, cool. So let's dive deeper into your process, right? Let's say a client comes on board. What does the typical process look like? How do they get ramped started with
Yeah,
you?
very deep intake process. I think this is important. Like, we're more of a team-based approach. And
Hmm.
this is just, I think, good knowledge for anybody out there, any listeners or whatever that are trying to figure out, like, what kind of agency do I work with, or like, should I have my SDR do it? There's a lot of SDR agencies that will give you a person, right?
Hmm.
And they'll have like a process with like onboarding, but you're going to really train them and ramp them as the client. We're more of a team-based approach. So you'd meet my copywriter, you'd meet my CTO for the infrastructure, my account manager to get all the integrations set up. We have an onboarding assessment, copywriter call, and a tech setup. There's a couple other integration calls, but it takes about 2 weeks. So clients usually like that we can kind of come into the relationship, get the essence of like what they do, target
Hmm.
audiences, very specific pain points, value props, because we're going to test all of it. And not to go on a tangent, but that's what a lot of people mess up on outreach is like they just load in every problem into an email.
Yeah.
Doesn't work, hard to digest. No one wants to read that. And then you
Yeah.
can't actually test what's working.
Yeah.
So we break it down problem by problem, angle by angle, value prop by value prop, audience by audience, and we do
Hmm.
deep segmentation work. And then that allows us to turn around copy and lists and campaigns for the first several campaigns. And then we iterate on that. So like we add lots of tests, we add new audiences over time. But whole process takes about 2 weeks to like, you know, hit the go button.
Interesting. Let's take a real example. Maybe not name the client, but how did you figure out what audience to start testing with? What kind of copy, if you can actually like mention the, opening line, the problem, like
Yeah, I
let's.
can pull up a couple examples. They're an AI platform for product recommendations on like e-com platforms. So, classic example of like a client that would do really well with triggers. We try to build triggers into outreach. So like hiring, funding, people that are newly appointed. My general thought on like building copy is like personalizing the first line with like compliments or like, hey, nice post or whatever. I just don't think it scales. I don't think it works. And I also don't think that sales reps are actually going to do it every day. So
Yeah.
you miss out on like the consistency of it. So what we
Mhm.
do is we build very targeted, hyper relevant lists that all run at the same time. So like for example, I won't tell you the
Yeah.
name of the company. Basically, they work really well as a product recommendation carousel. They work well with companies that use Shopify, and
Mhm.
even better if the company uses Shopify and Klaviyo. So we're
Mhm.
able to pull technographic data and even keeping it like super simple. This one email is generated. This is part of a lot of campaigns for them, but like 12 or 13 leads within the first like 3 weeks. Quick thought on company names: product recommendation carousel. Notice you're using Shopify and Klaviyo.
Uh-huh.
Get into the problem. Most carousels provide a 6 to 12% conversion lift. Our model does 40 to 60% better on average by delivering recommendations on real-time behavior, right?
Mhm.
And then a really soft CTA, would this fall under your area of expertise? PS
Mhm.
line, by the way, we're the only platform backed by Shopify, right?
Mhm.
So
And
like 3 or 4 sentences, soft call to action. The subject line is, let me see. It's just recommendation carousel, all lowercase.
mhm.
I don't usually go beyond like 3 words. We're testing like 4 or 5 CTAs on that, but
Mhm.
open rates are 58. I'm gonna check it. 58%.
Mhm.
Reply rate is 4.5%, and we've had
Mhm.
13 leads that have come through that one, and it's been about 3.5 weeks on that particular campaign. You have to just do a lot of work on the onboarding process with like, what are all the possible triggers on why somebody would use your product? If it's technographic, if it's buyer intent, if they're
Mhm.
searching for keywords, if it's like funding, if it's department size, like if they're hiring, if they're
Mhm.
adding headcount, and that plays well with your service or product,
Mhm.
putting the pieces together and then testing it all.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. I think you're very deep into triggers, which I think a lot of in general SDRs miss out on, right? Like you should have a solid reason to reach out, right? Like if
Yep.
it's just in generic, like let's say you're a software development agency, then doesn't work, right? Versus if you are a like Shopify developer that helps you do XYZ,
Hmm.
the more niche you get with your product market fit as well as your trigger fit, so it becomes like a threefold thing, like product
Yes.
market fit, and then it just clicks, right?
Exactly. Like to your point on outsource like developer shops or like really competitive spaces, like we work with some of those clients. If
Mhm.
it's going to be some generic email about how you have a bunch of developers that are super experienced and like are cheap, and don't waste your time. Like in our like we work with a couple companies. It's like, what do you guys really do best? Like who are your best clients? And it turns
Yeah,
out, like if I give you an example, their
yeah,
best clients are OTT providers like Hulu, They actually work with Hulu,
I see.
Netflix, Disney. So build so it's a streaming platform expertise. Like let's
Uh-huh.
build campaigns just towards that. Just speak to
Yeah.
that use case. Some people have this like urge to like try everything. Like let's try every market, and give them everything on the menu. You know,
Yeah.
it's a kind of a waste of time.
It's like one of those restaurants, right? You go in and they're selling, Indian food, Mexican food, and
Right. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it's a massive risk, right?
It's a risk, man. Like you're probably not good at any of those things if you're telling me. Yeah. So yeah, we're on the same page with that.
Awesome. Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Perfect. Let's go deeper into the actual channels, right? Is it mostly email, or do you do more of LinkedIn, cold calling? What's the split look like?
We do email and LinkedIn. I used to do calling. I used to offer that as a service, but I cut that out recently, like probably the last like 7 or 8 months. It's hard to scale.
Mhm.
And I'd rather the client have somebody make cold. If they have, a lot of times we work with sales teams that already have people cold calling, and
Yeah.
we'll build in workflows for them. What we can really get behind on results are our email campaigns and our LinkedIn campaigns. That's just kind of what I've seen in the market. But there are a lot of great agencies that also offer cold calling.
Okay. Any thoughts on the other upcoming channels? Like there's gifting, there's a lot of that coming up.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if you do the work on segmentation and you're
Yeah.
not just blasting that to everybody and you're like, hey, like we have a really niche market, and even within that niche,
Mhm.
like I worked with a company that sold into airlines. like
Oh.
a global airline. So there really were only like couple hundred accounts that we were really targeting. So we thought of a strategy around like gifting and hard mail and things like that. Turns out our email campaigns worked really well because it was so niche and
Yeah.
the messaging was just like on point. But yeah, look, if a rep has 50 accounts and each of those accounts would like change the business, like our
Hmm.
7-figure deals, go for it. Like try some gifting. I think companies like Sendoso are very pricey.
Hmm.
I mean, I think if you're a huge team with an endless budget, like there's no harm in it. But
Hmm.
I think just be really human in your outreach. Like if you're gonna call, be very human, email, get in front of them with a good problem to solve. The other stuff, it's cute, but I don't know how well it works or scales.
Interesting.
I haven't
Yeah. No.
seen any data on that, is what I'll say. Like no one shared with me, like, hey, I sent this like bottle of wine to a decision maker and boom, they're a 7-figure deal now. Like I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, because that's probably not true, right? Like you have to follow that up with a bunch of like with actual problem focused solution, right? Like it's not
Yeah.
just the wine bottle that got you the deal, right?
I mean, I'm sure it works. I know people, I'm sure a lot of reps listening or whatever might say, no, I have a story. It's kind of like one off, but we just stick to what scales because that's what's
Yeah,
going to help a company get their next round, hit their revenue target, like all the other stuff that can kind of get noisy.
it makes a ton of sense. Perfect. So let's get into the copywriting process a little bit. How do you guys do it? I'm sure you have in-house copywriters. Any thoughts on GPT and all of that stuff?
Yeah, GPT is cool. I don't think it's writing like I think it has good prompts. I think that it can get you started if like you're really entry level and you're not sure. But GPT prompts are like pulling from their parameters are like pulling from old like existing emails and copy and that stuff isn't good. So
Yeah,
it's almost not thinking of the forward looking stuff that's actually going to work.
yeah.
It's not helping you build a tight list so that your copy pops even more. Our copy process is like really breaking out angles and problems, like very individually. Sometimes we'll tack on one or two in an email, but like the process is deliver an angle that they like an illuminating problem or like some downside that they can consider.
Hmm.
Do a quick bump usually
Hmm.
and test a few bumps, like
Hmm.
even something as quick as like any thoughts or any feedback on this or like would this merit a conversation or whatever. Like try a lot of that, but then by the time you get to that third email, like lead with something new,
Hmm.
and that's the other like error that I see is like you try, you love your first email so much so you just keep throwing it
Yeah,
out over and over again. Like just lead with something new. They obviously haven't responded to that, so but if you've used up all your problems in the first email, then you can't have anything too fresh in that third one.
yeah.
I like doing tight sequences, like 5, 6 steps, and then like have a waiting period, maybe six
Hmm.
weeks, and then retarget. Like um,
Hmm.
having like 16, 17 step sequences not good. It also
No.
hurts deliverability. That's a big part of our operation is like setting up domains the right way, configuring it, authenticating it,
Yeah,
monitoring it. So
yeah,
like what we see is by the time you get to that fifth or sixth step, you're going to see a drop off in engagement. And if you have
yeah,
hundreds of emails going out a day that aren't getting responses because they're like in a later step, your domain health is going to suffer. So
yeah.
that's kind of
That,
how we build sequences. So you're
yeah.
going to get most of your engagement from the first 2 steps, 3 steps anyway. The gurus
Hmm.
will tell you that, but that's what we
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, I mean, like the old Agoji, whatever sequence it was, like I think it's long dead now. Like the 31 step sequence from the out.
Yeah, I,
Remember that?
I hope so, man. I mean, look, if you have a focus list and you got 50 accounts and you got phone steps in there and you've got like LinkedIn profile views and then you've got and okay, if it's a total of like 12 or 13 steps, then that's okay. But if you're just doing like straight email or straight LinkedIn,
Yeah.
um, definitely not be. I wouldn't go beyond 5 or 6 steps.
Okay. Okay. Let's chat a little bit more about the copywriting now. CTAs, right? Any favorite CTAs, stuff that you really like testing and all?
Yeah, really soft stuff, man. Like I don't like asking for time, worth
Yeah.
exploring, want to learn more. Um, would this be worthy of an email conversation? Like, opposed to hearing a bit more? Mind if I share an idea? Sometimes not even having a CTA. Just like,
Hmm.
let me know if you'd want to hear more about this. Happy to share a quick sample. Mind if I, a really good one lately has been, mind if I share a quick video or a quick PDF?
Yeah.
Um, engagement on that is really good. Sales teams have to like go back and forth a little bit more to get the meeting, but you get better engagement. So like
Yeah.
you'll pull people, it's like what's the numbers on any given day? You have 3% of your addressable market ready to buy, right?
Yeah.
So if you ask for time with those people, they'll take the time. But
Mhm.
anybody outside of that, if there's like 10% of your market that is not ready to buy today, but they're like intrigued, the
Mhm.
softer calls to action will get better engagement with those people. So
Mhm.
you're like reeling in a bigger group. So that's
Mhm.
why we
No,
like soft.
yeah, makes a ton of sense. We love soft as well because it's just that, like, it's just math, right? Like, if you're reaching out to 100 people, only three are ready to buy. So you're burning the rest 91 by going in with a harsh
Yeah,
CTA, shooting yourself in the foot. So,
exactly. Like it also just makes you look really needy and like pushy and like I'm like trying to get something from you, like I'm looking up at you and when you do something soft and chill, it's not like casual. It's not. It's like okay, like we'll survive without you, but you might want to learn about this. It might make your life easier, or make you more money, or get you promoted faster, or whatever. Yeah, it's just more peer to peer in that way.
tools. What tools do you use? What does your sales tech stack look like?
Well, you're not gonna like this because you have your database, but and other things that's part of that. But we do Apollo is our
Mhm.
primary outreach software. We use Expandy for our LinkedIn automation. We use
Mhm.
Million Verifier to
Mhm.
clean all contacts. We use a tool called MailReach, which is an email warmer tool. I'm sure you guys have like talked
Yeah.
about that, or you might use something like that. SendGrid is our SMTP. That's what
Mhm.
we like. We send pretty high volume for clients, so we don't use Google or Outlook. We just
Mhm.
link up SendGrid to Apollo.
Mhm.
Um, and then we have a couple other like backend databases that we use if Apollo doesn't catch it.
Mhm.
And we use Sales Navigator definitely.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, that's would be most of what we use for clients.
Okay, perfect. Makes a ton of sense. In terms of your journey, what was the biggest mistake that you did when you started these campaigns for clients?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, maybe my mistake in the first few months of like me starting the business like 3 years ago, like I didn't really have a grasp on how critical deliverability is.
Hmm.
Um, Funny enough, those first few clients did well. Like it was almost like the universe like just working with me on that because it took a while to like learn the ins and outs of deliverability. But maybe my
Yeah.
mistake in the first 2 or 3 months was not grasping that fast enough. Like
Hmm.
now, deliverability is a huge part of our operation. Like it's critical. We
Hmm.
have Glock apps, tools that we're using to monitor. Like it's a big part of this process, which I didn't spend as much time on, like when I was just like getting started.
Yeah.
But other than
Yeah.
that, no regrets.
I mean, Apollo plus SendGrid is hard for deliverability, right? Because you're not relying on the reputation that the G Suite or an Outlook gives you. So I
Yeah.
imagine it's
Yeah, we typically do domain rotation and we'll set up multiple subdomains so that if
yeah.
one has an issue, we tag it out, tag in a better one that's in the green. So you kind of
Mhm.
need, if you're doing that higher volume and SendGrid, you're using like a shared IP or even you can use a dedicated IP. You could always run into issues. The problem with Google is like, yes, maybe the reputation is a little better, I guess, of the IP, but like you can only send 60, 70 emails a day from that.
Yeah.
Um, and even then, you can run into issues. At the end of the day, if you're not getting engagement, like if people aren't replying to your emails, doesn't matter what you send it from.
Yeah.
Like servers are going to block you. So
Yeah.
that's the lesson we learn and we continue to
Interesting.
learn. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. Perfect. Let's go into one final question.
Sure.
So, what is the top three things you're excited about trying out further, like for clients?
Yeah. Well, we're rolling out a couple new services, which I'm excited by, that work really well with outbound. A lot of it goes into like recruiting and training sales reps.
Mm-hmm.
So like as part of outbound, we'll generate lots of leads for clients, but they don't have somebody on the inside that can like handle the lead flow. So we're building like a program where we'll work with those reps and then possibly even bringing in our own SDRs that we can
Hmm.
ramp and train. So we've been working on that, broader copywriting strategies. But in general, outbound, I think the outbound fundamentals are going to be like they're critical today and will be the same principles in a year. Like build tighter lists. I think our lists are getting even smaller so that our copy is better. Our like be really stringent on keeping data quality clean and listen
Mhm.
to the market. That's the stuff that we focus on all day long. The other
Mhm.
services and all that is great, but like what's really been working for us is just straight outbound for clients. So sticking to staying in your lane,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
we want to what we want to focus on.
This was great, man.
Yeah,
Loved having you. Thanks for making the time and
yeah, man.
have you on the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the questions.
All right.
So that's all the time we have, folks. I really enjoyed the episode. I hope you did too. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, whatever you can to spread the word out about cold outreach success stories so more people can enjoy and learn from the show. All right, that's all, folks. Bye bye.